Hi guys, Kaycee with hobscrew.com here, and today I'm actually going to talk about unit studies. So there's lots of ways that you can homeschool, and one of the ways that I find saves me a lot of time because I do have 7 children, and we have ranging from 3 to 16, and so that can be a lot of work. And I personally don't want their homeschool memories to be a bunch of just individual class times where they're working by themselves. So I feel like there is some value in them learning from each other and learning together. So we use unit studies to teach mainly history, science, art. Sometimes there'll be some PE in there, and writing. I do their writing assignments through the unit studies. So I'm kind of going to start at the beginning of what is a unit study. So I started exploring this concept when we went from 1 to 5 in 1 year. We fostered and adopted eventually 7 kids. But in 1 year, we went from 1 to 5 kids. And 4 of those kids were under 3, and really little kids. So I really didn't have to worry about schooling at that point. But I began to kind of I guess it was my period of being overwhelmed that I thought, how am I going to teach all these kids? How is that going to look? And so I began to explore how other large families taught their kids, and came across the unit study idea. So I had to dig for a lot of information to see how they did this because I was so intrigued. And so a unit study is where you take one topic and you explore every part of that topic. And so you put that topic kind of under a magnifying glass of sorts, and you look at it, and you sorry, Sam just walked in. And you look at go away.
How rude.
I know. Okay, so you look at it and you explore every part of that topic. So I kind of think of a unit study like a swimming pool. So you're just immersed in every part of what you're going to learn. So let's play a little game. Okay. Before we play the game, let me tell you this. So whenever I am doing a unit study and I want to study some sort of time period or some sort of state or a place that we're going, then I always look for people that lived during that time. So I like to study the person, and then you get to study a bunch of things that happened in that person's lifetime that they might have been exposed to. So let's play a little game here. Okay. So what do you think hamburger history, which was really fun learning about because we made hamburgers, Battle of Gettysburg, the Titanic, Cuba, chocolate, and then we learned about the character trait of generosity. What do all those have in common? Okay, so all of those things have one person in common, and that is Milton Hershey. Okay, so we learned he was a part of the World Fair, and so that's when hamburgers were introduced to the U.S., and so that's where that came in. Him and his wife were supposed to be on the Titanic. And Kitty got sick, that's his wife, and so they were unable to make it. And so we learned about the Titanic. And then, of course, Cuba with the cocoa beans and all that. Of course, we couldn't do it without learning about chocolate and how chocolate's made. He also started off in the ice cream business, and so we did some ice cream. Learn about some ice cream and eat some ice cream because that's the most important thing. And then he was a very generous man. So, him and his wife were unable to have children, so they kind of opened a boys' school, And he visited that school and kind of fostered those children. And he made that open to people who maybe didn't have the money to send their kids there. So he was a very generous man. And so we were able to learn about that. Well, after we learned about that, we actually had a vacation plan to go to Hershey, which, if you ever have the chance to do that, that's like an amazing field trip because there is so much sensory into that. It's just unreal. So that is like immersing them in a topic, okay? Not only are you learning, you're learning world history, you're learning some science, you're learning just regular history, American history is in all of that in just one lump sum. And the kids remember it. So I like to use a guided math and language curriculum. And by guided, meaning I buy a boxed curriculum for both of those. And the reason I do that is because I do not have the time or don't necessarily really have the desire to write my own math curriculum. And I don't want to miss them. That is something those are two things that I don't necessarily know if I could teach multi-level. I mean, they can sit at the table, I can be available, which is generally what happens, but I can't really combine them teaching math because obviously you have to learn addition before you can learn subtraction. And or there's just different steps developmentally that they can. So I don't mess with that. We do use a boxed curriculum. Now, if I have the opportunity in my unit study to throw in some sort of math, maybe word problem usually, because I love doing that, then definitely I'm going to do that. So then they can figure it out. That works really well with like food. So food's always a big hit. So if you have some sort of cooking lesson based upon like making caramel, we make caramel with Milton Hershey. And so that, of course, involved a lot of math. And that's always fun. So I kind of have a recipe that I use for my unit studies, and that is it's kind of a 3-step process. But before I develop that 3-step process, I have what I call foundational principles. So there's generally aim for 3. You don't want to get too many, but there's 3 foundational principles that I want to teach. Like, what's the goal for the kids to learn? And that's what I call my foundational principles. So usually there's some sort of, obviously history involved that I want them to learn about, something. And then I also want them to learn some sort of character. And just notice, usually whenever you're studying a person, you can kind of notice like the behaviors and what that yielded for them. So, for example, we noticed that Milton Hershey, he failed in business actually a couple of times. And so, he was persistent and he tried again. Once it knocked him down, he got up and tried again. And so that was something I pointed out. His generosity, he was truly a generous man. So that was something that I really wanted my kids to recognize. Every single time I taught this lesson, I wanted them to recognize it. And of course, just the basics of, who he was, what he did, where he lived, things like that. So I kind of set goals for what they're going to learn, and then we pursue those goals with every lesson. We learn it. That's our first ingredient in our recipe. So we learn it. And that means that we either read, I usually like to read books. We read a book, a biography about that person. And then we watch videos. YouTube has a ton of stuff out there. And you can find all kinds of stuff that is really cool, that makes it come alive for the kids. So, and then we look up online articles and look at what's out there, read about that. Like, we just kind of immerse ourselves in the research part of it to see what we can find. I do like doing books on tape or on audio. That's a big thing for me. And sometimes we can utilize our drive time to listen to something productive. And we'll listen to about that person on our drive time as well as in when we're learning. So The second one is experience it. So I love to do hands-on activities or games or something like that where they get to experience what we're learning about. So, for example, for the making of the caramel, we did that with Milton Hershey. So, and we made chocolate, different kinds of chocolate. So, we melted it down and turned it into candy. So, that was always fun. A lot of Milton Hershey had to do with food just because of who he was. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be a game in the front yard. For example, Racing Through Creation, which we just released on our website. The day one, we built the layers of the earth out of Play-Doh. And so then they cut it open and had to explain the layers of the earth. And so that was the hands-on activity for that. So whatever it is, you get to experience something to do with that. So it's some sort of hands-on experience. This creates a lot of questions for kids. And so whenever they have those questions, then we can chase those squirrels, is what I like to say. So if, for example, they say, like let's say we're doing Racing Through Creation, Heavens and Earth, and they say, what is the temperature of every layer of the earth? And so we go through and we figure out the temperatures of the layers of the earth. Or what is it? Is it hard? Is it soft? Is it liquid? I mean, there's all kinds of questions. And so you can kind of just, as they ask their questions, then you figure out the answers. And that'll kind of give you a good idea of what they like and what they're going to be interested in going further. Another thing about unit studies and experience it, like I have one kiddo who, Andy, loves to build things, and so, or do puzzles. And so sometimes I can have a puzzle in there, or I can have him build something. And so I can kind of determine based upon what my kids like and kind of write the lessons based upon what their learning style is. And that really helps keep their attention and keep them engaged. And then the last thing is write it. So I took over, instead of doing a guided box curriculum on writing, I started doing my own writing clinics every week. And we would actually, at the last day of our unit study, we would write about what we had learned. And I have found that to be very beneficial because and I would basically plan it on their age level of how much I expected out of them. And I have found a lot more success because they're very excited about what they've learned, and so they like to talk about it. And then, someday they can look back on it and remember everything that we've done. So that's kind of like how I view unit studies. It's just taking one topic and seeing just doing a little bit of research when I decide what I'm going to do. Like right now I'm writing one on World War II. And so I'm taking it and I'm looking at every part of World War II, and we're reading a book with it, and then we're looking at camouflage. We're looking at the codes that they used. And then we're looking at, who was in the war, what side were they on, and where is that country located. And for their writing, for one of their writing assignments, they're to explore that, to pick a country and explore what it looked like in World War II, and how, when they entered the war, when they left the war, how was it when they left the war, things like that nature. What kind of challenges did they have to overcome? Anyways, that's my take on unit studies. I love doing unit studies. It is like one of my favorite things. I feel like my kids learn a lot more because they're learning on something, and then we are usually going and experiencing something like with some sort of field trip, and so that really helps out too. I just feel like they really overall have blossomed under this, and then we get to learn together, and that it's kind of like a family mission. And at the end of the day, we make memories, and isn't that what homeschooling is all about? So I hope that you will try a home unit study, and just see what your kids like and explore that further. You would be surprised at how much they will learn, and they will enjoy learning, and then it just keeps going. They want to find more, and they look on their own time. Because whenever we go to the library and they want to check out a book on something that they want to learn further about, that just makes my heart happy. So anyways, I hope that this was helpful, and I'll catch up with you next time.